Hey there. Welcome to Wizardry 101, Class 3. Yay! I hope you've been enjoying your adventure so far. And the whole focus of this class is actually to hone in on your, not only like as a group, hone in our magical powers, our wizardry powers, but also hone in for you individually what your beautiful, wonderful brilliances are. And so this lesson has to do with boundaries with that. As an infinite being and also a being that has a lot of capacities that we're starting to delve into and dive into and play with and ask the universe to show us more and more and more. Because a lot of these gifts and talents and abilities have been shut down in a lot of different ways. We've been manipulated in this reality, and one, we don't remember coming in. Two, we might have been tortured, killed, maimed, whatever, in other lifetimes for these gifts and capacities. And so we come into this reality with a veil of just kind of forgetting it all. But little things will pop up, and we can go back, and as we've done in the individual sessions, and see where little things popped up as a little kid and as we went along, and how magic showed up in different ways in our lives. And we always just kind of discounted it as, oh, maybe that didn't really happen, or it kind of went out of our memory. So let's look at that. Let's look at that, and then also boundaries that we have with our gifts and capacities, because what tends to happen when we start to step into our gifts and capacities is we're still very vulnerable with it all, and we're just kind of feeling it out. We're not sure how far it's all going to take us. We're not sure what are all gifts or capacities. And then we have some people that we might have done energy healing on, or other things on or with, that will tell us, oh, you're amazing with this, or wow, you blew me out of the water with this, or you can just do this, this, and this. And there's a part of that that can be manipulation, and it's very slight. And so I want to call it to your attention. If you're out there in the world doing energy sessions or doing energy work or different things with people, if it's coming through and it's almost like an ego thing and the energy with it is very wonky, chances are it's probably a manipulation of your gifts and capacities, etc. Because one, you wouldn't be in this class if you weren't a powerful mofo, and number one. And two, what do you know that hasn't been unraveled yet with that, which is kind of exciting, because we're just at the tip of the iceberg here, guys and gals. And what's kind of exciting is, as we look at and acknowledge what's really your personal gifts and capacities, and the gifts and capacities we have as a group coming together with all of this that we can share, we're just at the tip. Like, more and more and more, as you acknowledge those gifts and capacities, they'll show up more and more and more awareness will be expanded on it. So there'll be just fun and playful adventures with it all. So if we keep it light and fun and playful, that's where those energies expand the most. It's with gratitude, it's with acknowledgement, it's with joy. And so I just wanted to point that out, because I've had this in my life where I've done a lot of healing sessions on people, and people started saying, oh my God, you're so powerful, and this and that and that. And it was all coming from a space of almost like the ego. And I received it, and at times I would kind of get pumped up with it. From my perspective, I was like, oh, I'm actually helping more people. I'm really helping people. But what I didn't realize, the sneaky thing about that is if it's a manipulation coming through somebody, the energy's kind of projected at you, it's out coming from outside of you, and it's a little wonky, chances are it could be a manipulation. And then once they can hook with you with the ego part of it, and I didn't even really go to ego over it. I was just kind of glad that I was helping more and more and more people, and to the expansion of how I was helping them. But what I found was in the languaging of the people showing up, it was, can you do this for me? Can you take this out of me? Can you, you're so powerful. Not coming from a power place themselves. So that is the trick, and not really the trick. It's a little trick that manipulation can use with us for those of us who do have immense capacities, because it's always looking for ways to kind of like embed itself. It sounds kind of crazy, but true. Embed itself where we might buy that as right and true. And for me, I wasn't going necessarily to ego over it, although I might have been a little bit. It was more, I was glad I was helping. And so it kind of looks at those areas where you're making those things significant. And so I also want to say that we want to live a life of vulnerability to the point with awareness that we're not making anything significant. Because when we start making things significant, and you might have heard me say this before if you've been in other classes, if you're starting to make things significant, that's where those energies can creep in and kind of manipulate you over that. It's almost like somebody flailing their hands and saying, over here, of something that really like makes them puts them into reaction. And so they're like, oh, he or she is in reaction mode. That's where we can go in and kind of like send them sideways with their abilities. And then you start going sideways and you're not moving forward and expanding into your own personal power. So how do we get around that? What a great question, Carol. And people in the class, how do you get around that? Well, you always play joyfully in standing in your own personal power. And this is the trick. I've had a lot of people ask me that I've coached, like, how do we know, like, what's the next step? How do I know that I'm going in the right direction? How do I know? Well, if you're coming from your personal power, you will know. If you're coming from the me space that you be, you'll know. And you'll get lots of voices coming in, because there is manipulation out there, folks. I'm not here to say that there isn't. You'll get different voices, and you want to say, is this me, someone else, or something else? And then if it's not you, you can't banish you, just incinerate it. And just oust that out and move on, and then keep asking questions. And if the energy is wonky or you start getting foggy, like that's, I use a clearing for that I'll share with you, but it's staying in that personal power. Your power is the greatest power. Your awareness is the greatest awareness. So anything that's not coming to you and not feeling great, normally that's not coming from you. And that means it's being projected at you. It's kind of like those people saying, oh my God, you've got all these great powers and blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, what is that? Because you're coming from a knowing of your own personal power. And if you're coming from a knowing of your own personal power, while it's nice to have that acknowledgement outside, do you even need that? So that's where I say boundaries come in with all of this. You want to have boundaries with your gifts and capacities. And you want to use them in the spaces where you are in your personal power. And if there's anybody coming into you or wanting you to, hey, take this out of me or do this for me, run away from that. You don't have to run away from the person, but you want to show them how to do that for themselves. Because if not, the universe doesn't like us to do things for people, make decisions for people. They have to do it of their own free will. You're in this class of your own free will, to expand your gifts and capacities. And we're kind of coming into an area and a time where the frequencies out there, we're actually healing a bit differently. And people have to step up to the plate a bit more. And I kind of was asking permission, but I needed the permission from the body and the being. So you want to show that person how to choose that for themselves. You want to show that person how to do that for themselves. And I know some of you don't want to do healing of others. You want to just expand your gifts and capacities, and that's cool too. So be where you are, choose for you, stay in that personal power, and then hold the boundaries of that. Because if people, if people find out that you're doing certain types of healings or whatever, you're going to have every Tom, Dick, and Harry coming out, and you're just going to have boundaries with that. Because one, I'm not going to take anything out of anybody. I've learned that. I've learned that lesson. Two, I'm not going to just give my time away to everybody anybody under the sun. And if they're just like, if I'm talking to them and talking to them and talking to them and they're not choosing for themselves, then it's probably better for them to go talk to somebody else. I'm not that gal. And it's honoring everybody, because you got to honor your gifts and capacities and yourself first. And people will follow with that. And so it's kind of leaning into your own personal power with all of this. And so I want to be clear that to hold your own boundaries, to not get sucked into everybody else's point of view about what your gifts and capacities are. And then really working one-on-one with your authentic, and make sure it's authentic universes, because there's lots of universes out there. Just as we can be manipulated in different ways, we can kind of get sucked into that as well. We want to be in our space. I want to be me. You want to be me. You don't want to be me, but you want to be your me. And stay in your power. And that's the best advice I can give you. And then also hold those boundaries. But a lot of times, if you're really totally standing in your personal power, and I get it, like we're at the point where we are kind of vulnerable, looking at all this different new stuff for ourselves. We might not even be quite sure about what all our gifts and capacities are. But the more that you can play with personal power, and this is where I would like for you to play with this week, is play with your personal power. Play with expansion of your personal power. And I'll attach some different play with this for this lesson, because I want you to play with your personal power. I want you to play with the boundaries of your personal power, and I want you to start expanding that out, so that if somebody is not the frequency that you be living at, choosing at, all of that, then you won't even have to really put in boundaries, because you'll just attract the frequency that you are. If you're kind of starting and you're not totally in that footing, that's fine. Know that you might have some people that will come in and out, because your frequencies won't be pretty static all the time. And we're going to be raising your frequencies quite a bit in this class. So you'll go through times of seeming like everybody might seem to be going away, but just know that all of this is a gift. You want to be where you are. You want to completely step into it energetically, and you want to attract where you are as well. And when we're starting in the middle, it's pretty, you know, standard for people to kind of come in and out, and but if you're standing in your personal power and you have those boundaries for yourself, you'll go to less, I guess, the stress of this reality over this. And you'll be able to step more into the frequencies of your energy. So I just wanted you to be aware of that this week, because we're going to be playing with that a bit, and just play with expanding your awareness, expanding your frequency, and expanding boundaries with that of who you be, who you authentically be. And coming from that space, man, you'll be unstoppable. And I can't wait to see what expands out of that. So that's the lesson for this week. I hope you enjoy. Look for a little play sheet that will go along with this. If you have any questions, just reach out to me, and we'll get everything answered or anything shifted. And big love on this big journey of stepping into your wizardry powers. Thanks so much, and have a great week.